is that Elon Musk, I've heard of this guy. You heard of this guy? Says
Never.
that the blue check mark system is bullshit, quote unquote. That's a direct quote. And Twitter Blue will be $8 a month with half the ads, priority in replies and mentions and search and more. But we knew that yesterday because I think that tweet of his was active when we were meeting here 24 hours ago. And boy, has that been the biggest topic of even AOC jumped in saying LMAO. That is politician speak for laughing my ass off. LMAO.
Yay.
She says LMAO at a billionaire earnestly trying to sell people on the idea that quote unquote free speech is actually a $8 a month subscription plan.
It's not free after all.
Well, how much is free speech in the U.S.? How much does America spend daily ensuring its security? So maybe it's not so crazy to think of free speech as coming at a price or cost.
Hey, Tyler, remember yesterday you were pointing out about the Stephen King's tweet, and Elon actually responded, right? Because he talked about
can't hear you.
$20, and then
Hold on.
Elon responded, how about $8, right?
I cannot hear you, Cheryl. Let me put in my headphones. Say that again a little louder, please.
No, I'm saying, can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh, no. Yesterday you were saying that Stephen King has a tweet saying that he will not pay $20, right? That he should be paid, right? And then
Right.
Elon Musk responded, how about $8? We have to pay bills, he said.
Right.
Yes. But of course, the free tier will still be around. It's only for those people who are really desperate to have the blue badge. So, Tyler, will you pay for it?
I already have a blue badge, so I would not
But
be
you need to
paying
pay
for
after this, no? To keep it. Yes.
I don't know. I would have to see. I only pay for one service, which is the YouTube, to skip the YouTube ads.
Yes.
Because
Yeah, skipping the YouTube ads is actually huge value. Like, just imagine how many minutes you spend daily watching YouTube ads. I feel like just the economics of it is kind of like what Steve Jobs said once upon a time about a computer waiting for it to boot up. It's like 30 seconds multiplied by 365 days. Well, maybe most people have to boot up their computer multiple times. So it's really how much your time is worth to you. So if there's a few other features, maybe some actually useful automation tools built into Twitter, it might be a really good value proposition.
Does that $8 also include ad-free Twitter?
Less ad.
Less ads, half the ads.
Less, half, not completely free.
Yes.
Right.
But Jason was saying there will be awesome features. Yeah, coming up soon, I guess. But
Yeah,
let's
like
see.
your Meta wallet, you can connect and sell and
I
connect.
don't know. They are planning it now. Are you part of the inner circle, Aram?
Cheryl, are you part of Inner Circle?
No, I'm not. So that's why I say they're talking about it now. So let's wait for them to finalize.
Okay, so I'm talking about the news that I read that they are going to not only incorporate wallets, but you'll be able to sell, buy, do all kind of things through this at ride share, communicate. There's so many different aspects of different apps that they are planning to incorporate in Twitter, along with the payment option.
I think they just follow similar to the game plan that LinkedIn were doing it, 10 years back. But monetize the platform.
Hey, Tyler.
Am I still good with, hold on here. Let me fix my audio.
Yeah, you sound still okay. I was just saying, remember yesterday you were talking about some people are money motivated, some people are equity motivated, and some people are title driven. I guess Jason is title motivated, right? He called himself the chief meme officer now at Twitter. MEME.
That's been his Twitter title, Twitter bio for a while now.
Chief meme officer at Twitter and the best moderator of the world. Something. World's greatest moderator. He said. So funny.
What else here? So that's easily been the biggest conversation topic. Even Edward Snowden chimes in on this
What did he
topic.
say?
The obsession with platforms prostrating themselves before advertisers has always been misplaced because on any scale longer than one bad news cycle, advertisers go where the audience is. Optimize platforms for people, not brands, because people have a choice, brands don't. Okay, moving along. The Verge says Sony plans to launch the PlayStation VR 2 on February 22nd for $550. Pre-orders open November 15th, just in time for buying it for the holidays, although you won't get it until February. Next, from the New York Times, Twitter's chief customer officer, quote unquote, resigns. Sources say there was another one, which was the chief diversity officer, people officer, also, quote unquote, resigned. And coincidentally, 24 hours after meeting Mr. Musk for the first time. Well, what interesting coincidence. Comedian and verified Twitter user Tim Heidecker puts the site's moderation practices to the test by starting hashtag Trump is dead, which began trending on November 1st. Elon Musk's TechCrunch has an article that says Elon Musk's history of amplifying misinformation shows that his Twitter won't be interested in protecting the LGBTQ community and others facing targeted abuse. And then the Washington Post says internal email, Twitter appears to be rushing out a high-risk paywalled video feature, letting users charge to view their videos, with Twitter taking a cut. So that could be a bit of an OnlyFans feature. And Elon Musk says Twitter will not reinstate banned accounts, quote, until we have a clear process for doing so, which will take at least a few more weeks. Then CNBC says that U.S. financial firms processed about $1.2 billion in ransomware payments last year, up almost 300% year over year. And 75% of the ransomware incidents were linked to Russia. China's Zhengzhou Industrial Park, where Foxconn makes iPhones, begins a week-long lockdown to counteract the severe and complicated spread of COVID-19. And now you know why everyone was running out of that part of China, hitchhiking and jumping on trains and flatbed trucks and anything they could to get out of there before the lockdown. Dropbox says hackers stole code and some API keys from 130 GitHub repositories via a phishing campaign, but its core apps and infrastructure were unaffected. Netflix begins rolling out its basic with ads tier. Oh, so it's a new Netflix, kind of a free Netflix with ads. So kind of like this thing called YouTube. And YouTube's rolling out a paid version with no ads, and these two are, and then they're both going into games and everything. Anyway, sources say licensing negotiations with Disney, Comcast, Sony, Warner Brothers, and Lionsgate are ongoing. Apple TV 4K, which came out a bit ago, now The Verge is doing a review. They say it's affordable, snappy performance, and the USB-C remote, but no AirTag-like remote tracking, lackluster live TV, and somewhat stale design. Bloomberg says Sydney-based Blackbird raises a $1 billion Australian dollar fund, the largest Australian VC fund yet, as startups are growing everywhere, including Australia. The UK's Ofcom begins scrapping legislation compelling British Telecom and KCOM to provide affordable, dedicated landlines, sounding the death knell for the fax machine. The Verge says Tumblr updates its community guidelines to allow nudity, mature subject matter, and sexual themes. But says it says sexually explicit acts remain off limits. CNBC says they have sources that Twitter managers told employees they would be paid for their newly vested shares in the first half of November 22, starting as early as November 4th. Washington Post says they have sources that the U.S. is exploring whether it has legal authority to review Elon Musk's Twitter deal, which gives large foreign investors access to confidential data. And from the Wall Street Journal, they did a profile of Johnny Ive from Apple. TechCrunch has an article about Twitch, which just launched something called Guest Star, which lets streamers pull other creators and fans into their streams for a talk show-like experience. Google plans to roll out parental controls for Google Assistant, including disabling some features, restricting some services, and setting downtime hours in the next coming weeks. AMD did their Q3 revenue report. Meta researchers create something called ESM Fold to predict the structures of 617 million metagenomic proteins that is less accurate than DeepMind's AlphaFold, but 60 times faster. Okay. Whole bunch of fundraisings. Meta plans to end human curation of its UK Facebook News tab. Contracted to a team of 15 journalists and switched to an AI system in 2023. Google adds Lens to the google.com homepage, letting users search by image after rolling out the feature to the desktop in 2021. An engineer re-implemented Google AI's text-to-image diffusion model for stable diffusion. Which essentially allows anyone to cheaply and easily recreate any artist's style on stable diffusion with text to image. A look at live of Ether miners. Who cares? Arizona based quick. Who cares? Okay. Colorado fundraising. Russia's RT, the news network banned by major platforms, has found an audience on Rumble after pushing Russian propaganda about Ukraine invasion. Rumble's kind of making its brand based on the fact that they don't moderate anything over there, I guess. Match Group, who cares? EA did their quarter, who cares? Amazon stock closed down 5% yesterday, down the fifth straight day, its lowest close. Why is Amazon going down? Well, they gave downward guidance on the quarter. Intel, who cares? Twilio plans to end ZipWhip's business texting service. ZipWhip after acquiring the Seattle-based startup in May. Okay, well, those are the big boring tweets for today, and then we can go into the tweets. Did anybody have a tweet since we met yesterday?
I did want to share something about a recent speaker in a club called Quantum Photonics. There was a talk titled How Viruses, I think, Hear and See Us. And so that binding sites of viruses seem to be related to whether other cells are around them. So in the specific study, they had a bacteria, and whether or not the bacteria was amongst other bacteria, there was an actual chemical chain of molecule interactions that resulted in a cascade that triggered the virus to explode. So it was very much proximity based. Somehow the virus knew that the bacteria was alone. Other times, so it would be dormant during that phase, and then other times when it got closer to other things, only then did the virus trigger the cell eruption. So it might be an interesting kind of side question for long COVID patients. Although the moral implications are, hey, let's just expose these people who have long COVID to high density regions. So that's kind of my crazy hypothesis out of the work. But exciting and interesting work, and virus is a little bit more clever than we originally thought.
Okay, anyone else with some tweets?
I did share a tweet, Tyler. First one was about the solar energy in Europe and the price, and then second one was the car that has solar cells covering the entire surface of the car, trying to break through that barrier of the limitation that solar power cars have because of the weather or limited capacity or the weight of the solar batteries. So this new technology kind of worked in shady days, like when there's not enough sun, was able to charge the car and yield 5,400 miles out of it. Still new technology, but kind of a positive trends in terms of green energy. And another tweet was from WHO, sorry, my puppy, about the food agriculture related energy consumption and the effect on climate, and how moving these vegetables or growth system internally, locally, through different hydroponic, aquaponic systems, and how that can help and reduce the climate cost. So since I was attending this space conference for the past 3 to 4 days, this person who's the creator of the Eden aquaponic systems was there presenting his, this technology that combines water with fish, in the water, and the yield of the crops were 5 to 8 times more, and the green leafy vegetables were more nutrient dense than normal agriculture practices yields, and that can be a solution not only for space, because this was space, uh, you know, um, technology developed for space growth of vegetation in space, but we can use that on Earth. So.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah,
It's
with
the
regard
oh, oh go
Yeah,
ahead. No, go ahead.
yeah, I
yeah, with
posted
regarding to Amazon closings, I know my sons is work in this area. Yeah, there are a lot of distribution centers closing off. They are do seeing decreasing ordering. I know they have a so-called pre Black Friday sales going on the last few weeks, but they don't see much of the ordering coming in. So for that reason, they are just a preventive measure. They are closing off some of the smaller distribution center and try to concentrate on, and that's the reason why the guidance are there. Uh, and look like this winter is gonna be worse than winter. So we want to wait see if their last quarter report will be fail, maybe at most at 20%. So that's what people prediction right now. So it's fun.
Tyler, did you see the article shared by Nicholas over the back channel about the Meta AI predicts shape of 600 million proteins?
We just read it. Anybody else?
Yeah,
You're
did
very
you see
soft,
what
Tyler,
I
or is it my
posted
signal?
in the Twitter about Meta buying up undersea infrastructure?
I did see your, yeah, I did see that you shared that one. Their plans for their intercontinental cabling.
No, it's not plans. They've been doing it for years, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah. Facebook has a lot of undersea cables.
so
Yeah,
it's a whole other business for them, really, to charge
yeah.
for.
Google does as well, by the way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Is Dr. Francis audio soft, or is it my issue?
I think.
Dr. Francine's on his earphone again.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot get the volume to be louder, and it's only soft for you guys. It's so weird. I never hear from anyone
Clubhouse.
else all day long that it's soft.
Yeah,
It's
compared with
not.
the speaker, the volume is like a 3 versus 8. So now you're about 3.
Wow.
Dr. Francine, Google have been doing the underwater sea mapping for a long time, and that project, I think it was initiated in 2000s, and the lady who was mapping the underground sea for Google for ages, I got to talk to her in I think April in Los Angeles, there was a conference, and she was mentioning how for the long time, like they had this first initiated like the mapping thing. So first they went underwater with I don't know whether they were drone or some kind of submarine type technology to map the entire surface of the sea. And after mapping the entire surface of the sea, they were looking for and searching for different location based on the geology and stuff and certain depths of the sea which are not accessible to humans, but still at a constant level of depth, they were mapping the entire ocean. So after mapping, it's not surprising if they are going to explore what are the regions where they can use resources for or lay down their cables or whatever next. So Google have that map
They've
of
laid
entire.
down cables, Aaron. They've laid down cables for the last, I don't know if you read that article, it's years and years, and they're partnered up with a bunch of other providers. I mean, I guess I guess my comment is it's very hard to think how Facebook would ever go out of business, even if we all abandoned it, because they are basically also an internet provider now. They're like a cable company.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, that's true. She's saying that how we can never get rid of Facebook now because they are now an internet provider because of this cable, thing, and they are a cable company now, and that cable laying is affecting environmentally. The flow of the ocean currents are being slowed down because of this kind of interference. So that's another aspect, like climate related aspect of what they're doing under ocean.
Just to roll back briefly to the solar-powered car, just to set people's expectations. So a typical car, take a Tesla Model 3, is, I don't know, call it 10 square meters on the top. It's not, but let's go really mad. Let's call it 10 square meters. So that can generate with future amazing solar panels that don't exist yet, 3 kilowatts at midday on the equator. Well, yeah, on the equator at midday, if there's no clouds in the sky, 3 kilowatts. A call it 2 realistically, with a reasonable amount at the top of the car, etc. So 2 kilowatts. A Tesla Model 3 going 50 miles an hour uses 20 kilowatts. So you're either going to only be able to drive 1 hour in 10 at 50 miles an hour, or you have to drive at the square root of 50, which is 16 miles an hour continuously. So in a heavy modern car with all the safety features, in somewhere extraordinarily sunny, very near the equator, with no clouds in the sky, no buildings blocking the roof, you might be able to drive continuously at 16 miles an hour. That's what we're talking about, just to get expectations, and that's the theoretical fundamental limit that can never be broken. So just worth bearing in mind. We're not going to be zooming around in solar only cars ever, but we might be trundling around slowly. But it's all good because they spend a lot of time parked. So just don't expect to drive forever and ever on a solar powered car with your stereo and your heating and your climate and your airbags at any reasonable speed. Just a quick reality check there.
I shared another tweet, Tyler, about the Chinese plane releasing some object in space, the reusable plane. Um, okay,
Go ahead.
so I covered this news. Why? Because, China's secretive reusable space plane has released this object into orbit, according to tracking data from the U.S. Space Force. So right? So U.S. Space Force is tracking, and they identify this object in the orbit. This is their second launch of this reusable experimental spacecraft from the Gobi Desert, and the spacecraft is now in the orbit for the 90 days. 2 weeks ago, this spacecraft released a circular object in the orbit, and U.S. Space Force, the Space Defense Squadron, has tracked the object close to the space plane. And why they are tracking it? Because it's unknown. They don't know what it does. I'm not sure that this is the first time, because I think they did eject some kind of object in the past as well. They are thinking, like, speculations are that perhaps this is a small satellite for monitoring the space plane, and the study I wanted to mention by Dr. Goswami. She presented how advanced a Chinese space program is, what they are planning for future for moon and cislunar colonies to harness the power of solar energy, and also to occupy the space in a way that is like very important for them. And that's why it's very important for United States to also invest in their space program. Otherwise, all this space related satellite and other surveillance, or I don't know, so many other aspects of space related stuff, we will be left behind.
Got to take the high ground.
Yep.
It's like a Chinese Sputnik moment. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I think Chinese already are on the dark side of the moon, mining using moon's resources, establishing stuff their colony, not the colony like human colony, but like establishing their fueling centers, and oh my God, so much more. And here we don't even have consensus to go to moon, because public opinion is not for space growth and space industry, but they are kind of advancing, and we need to just get our act together.
Sounds like a great episode of Ancient Aliens. Although I agree with your point, the problem is, I think, funding for these kind of crazy blue sky, green field type research projects is decreasing. NASA used to be 10%, now it's 0.5%. I'm surprised we even get output or anything gets sent up anymore, although inflation and other things can count for that. I think it's a valid point, and it kind of links back to the TikTok that what we put into our children's minds is what we get out. So if all we do is feed them junk food and garbage, then we shouldn't expect, great things. And I think perhaps people are becoming more conscious and more aware of that now. So that's a good thing.
Hi, this is Al. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, wherever you are. So, what do you mean by, Aram, about the U.S. going to the moon? Because, we already know we've done that. I think it's more about like expanding on that and educating people on what else NASA does. So many of the different things that have been researched and developed and created by NASA, we actually use in our daily lives, and a lot of people don't understand that. So, I think there's um, a piece where people need to better understand, and also our politicians maybe shouldn't just be people in business. That probably could help our growing space program. But I think a lot of people are like, well, we've already gone to the moon. There's nothing up there. What else do you want to do with it? Further into our galaxy for research and study is probably more beneficial, but I think people are just a bit closed-minded, or I don't want to say closed-minded, they're not creative enough about the potentials of going to space and what the impact of NASA has had on their daily lives.
Yes, I agree with you, Al, that people here think that we've been to moon and that's enough, and we need to move along. That's it. What we are not aware of, perhaps, is what is happening outside of USA, especially what Chinese are doing, and their space program is trying to gain. They have the entire timeline. If you want further detail, Dr. Goswami's link, I think I did tweet it when I was in the conference. So she presented this entire timeline that they have. It's not about just going and conquering and being on the moon and coming back. It's about occupying the moon and calling it theirs. Plus, they are developing these systems that will surround the moon and harness solar energy through the moon, moon surface and cislunar spaces. They have this timeline of developing these refueling stations using moon's uh, resources. And so, I mean, I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but the plans are very elaborate and to establish kind of permanent presence on the moon. And in further down, they plan to call it the moon as their own. And here in the United States, we have this thing: oh, we went to the moon, we are back, that's it. We should not be now wasting money on these kind of projects. So NASA has been cutting a lot of funding. Privatization have helped, like private companies are trying to, we have some satellites in space, but at no level the depth of the program and plan that they have. So we need to develop public consensus. And I had this, brief talk with Gwyneth Shotwell, the SpaceX person. She was saying that in the United States we are lacking in terms of education, so we need to incorporate in our syllabus the planetary and other space-related educational curriculum so our children can learn. And education is lacking, so our children can learn and can grow in this field. So we need to focus on our education.
I
So a
agree.
bit of
Oh,
an,
go ahead. But I have a question. Maybe you probably can answer this too real fast. So I thought, like, just like in some of the more open waters and stuff, just like in space, there was like an international agreement as far as the term of ownership, like we do in the Arctic and other various areas where not one country can state claim.
Exactly, that's what I thought,
Yeah,
Elle.
yeah,
My
because
mind
there's
was
international.
blown. My mind was blown when I heard to Dr. Goswami this amazing, very deep research in terms of how China first start by propaganda, start claiming something, gradually develop consensus, and then they are making this case that because of the entrenched cultural significance of moon for them, moon belongs to them. Why? Because of these reasons. They have those reasons written down. They have this entire agenda. I would direct you to Dr. Goswami's website for that.
Yeah, I'll
To
look it up. It's the moon. Yeah, I
Mm.
knew I learned about it in school. Something. It's like it's called the Moon Treaty. Signed
Yeah,
in
they
1979.
don't care about any treaty, and they
Yeah.
are establishing their background work right now, laying the groundwork so they can claim the moon in coming years.
well,
Well,
we're
hopefully,
having enough
hopefully, with the
trouble.
U.S. going back to the moon, will negate that.
Yeah, we're having enough trouble with the concept of international law here on Earth as it is. So people think. Another brief thing. If you can you hear me okay? Because my reception looks bad.
You just sound far away, Ben. Not
Oh, do
far,
I?
far, but you sound distant from your mic.
You're better
Oh,
than
okay. I'll
Dr.
come back in a
Francine.
sec.
No,
Better than Dr. Francis.
you're good. We can hear you very
Oh,
clearly, Ben. Yeah.
oh, good. Okay. So then the other thing is, of course, a bit of trivia. Despite the Pink Floyd song, there is no dark side of the moon. There is only a side of the moon that we never get to see from Earth. The whole moon gets light during the course of a day. Erin, did you suggest that the Chinese already have more than something substantial on the far side of the moon?
Yes, they have it. They are running experiments. Actually, the first experiment about pregnancy or conception, Chinese have done it. They showed the gametes, like the microscopic cellular reproduction happening. Only study that is available is by Chinese. And oh my God, I mean, the stuff that they are doing there is entirely mind-boggling. We are, yeah,
But
just check out
but
Dr.
what? So
Goswami.
I'm a bit confused. What are you suggesting they have? So they've launched, I believe, one mission that has landed on the far side of the moon. Everybody can watch that rocket go up and put some constraints on the maximum payload mass. So what are you suggesting they have? I'm sure they have left something on the far side of the moon, and I would suspect it weighs less than a few tons. But what do you're not? I mean,
No,
you're
it's a
not suggesting
flag for
like,
sure. I know it's a flag.
No, they
yeah, yeah,
are
there'll be something potentially bigger
continuously
than that.
conducting experiments. It's not like they went there, left something, came back. They are conducting experiments. They are doing a rover collection of samples. They are also developing technologies to use the moon's resources, the metal, not the metal, sorry, the chemical, whatever is present in the moon's surface. They are conducting experiments in terms of these different cellular growth, biological experiments, other experiments, and these are ongoing. They are conducting experiments right now.
Remember H.G. Wells' book and adaptation? And when they went to the future, the moon was missing. That's what this just reminded me of. But I also looked up the treaty. China was not one of the countries to sign it, so I could see why they have gone and went rogue because it was never. I'm pretty sure it was never revisited, considering where we are now since 1979 to get other countries to participate.
There was a company that presented, I mean, this guy is going to be the future astronaut. He's one of the twins, astronauts and army person. He is initiating 500-day twin study in the low Earth orbit because the previous twin study is very limited to collect the data about, humans' presence in space. Chinese not only have that kind of study already, not exactly the same. Not I'm not saying they have the same study, but their studies and knowledge and data about moon, about cislunar spaces, about the travel in space and the effect on human bodies is way advanced than our is. And Dr. Shana Pandya is one of the like a very very well known aquanauts who's training right now, and I had the pleasure to talk to her. She wrote the entire chapter on human pregnancy in space, and she was just like t- just sharing that we cut off all the biological experiment budget, so we are not doing any biological experiments right now, and the only experimental data that she can get her hands onto is coming from Chinese sources.
Yeah, I think the last test was on identical twins, one on Earth, one on space, and to see what gravity had on impact. They measured them. Measured the one twin before he left, and then what he looked like after, or how he was after, bone density and everything else. But I will say, within the U.S., I don't know if it was. I think it was during. I mean, NASA's budget has been going down for years, but I think the biggest push was during the Trump administration, where it was suggested that more private companies should be investing in stuff, and the federal government should not be in the business of it. But I will tell you that the U.S. military, just because NASA is not doing it openly, where it's visually viewed by like we can actually see it and they share it, the U.S. military will steadily invest in space, regardless of what is put in the news.
And
Yeah,
just for
that's good,
anybody,
but we do need additional educational budgeting and entire curriculum so our children and future generation can have the opportunity to grow in the future of space tech and technology. Sorry, Ben.
Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
no, I just want to make sure that anybody listening to this, this isn't what Erin is meaning to put across at all, but just I know how people listen to information sometimes. Please don't sit there and think that the Chinese currently have some massive base on the far side of the moon that nobody knows about.
Yes, thank
That's
you. Thank you for clearing that up.
that is not possible and not the case. It's not possible because they can't have lifted enough mass up there to do that, unless they have worked out how to build from lunar materials everything they need, which I don't think they will have done. And secondly, you can verify, not yourself, but via a satellite, that there are space instruments that can look at that side of the moon. So there may well be a lander there that is the size of truck or something at the most that could do a reasonable amount of autonomous experiments. But there is not some sprawling lunar base on the far side that the Chinese have snuck up while nobody was looking, because every single rocket launch is tracked and trackable, even by civilians. So you can verify for yourself pretty much that that can't be the
When you
case at this
said that,
stage.
I just imagine them taking it up there piece by piece, secretively, so Dad wouldn't find out.
Yeah, you just can't do it secretly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
the news is from after the 20th Congress, because their aerospace technology companies related, I mean the related one, have announced the plan about building like a science base on moon. So it's not done yet, but they have brought this plan out. So maybe in the future, because
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
because
correct. They
what
haven't
Aaron
done.
said, it's
It's
on the on the far side of the moon. It was done last year. They have this Chang'e number 4. It's just some roller to check the backside of the moon and try to relay the signal, because normally you can't transmit the signal directly to Earth. So they tested how to use the satellite to transmit the data, transfer the data from the backside of the moon. So it was done this year. So about this, the future science site on moon, it's brought up just last week. Oh no, 2 weeks ago, because it's on October 22nd. So maybe in the future we can have more details about this.
yeah,
Yes,
this is
they shared
overall,
the
it's oh, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
they shared the entire future timeline along with all the experiments and what their plan is, what they are working on currently, what their capabilities are right now, and when are they going to launch these experiments on the dark side of the moon, which we don't have. We don't have such plan right now. So they do have the rover there and transmitting data and stuff, but the plans that they have and the technology that they are working on right now on Earth, that's the part I was trying to highlight, that we are not investing in that, or our children or our generation here, our people here are in the mindset of, okay, we've been to the moon once and that's enough. And that's totally different in the way that they are doing these things. So again, look at Dr. Goswami's website and Dr. Shania Pandya's website to learn more about what Chinese capacities, capabilities are, and what kind of experiments they are conducting on that side of the moon.
yeah,
Well,
this is
I think
Huang.
our future is
I
going to be
may
the
I chime in?
entrepreneurs. Sorry,
Um,
go ahead.
yeah, I know we talk about strategies, but I can tell you as a military officer, former military officers, strategy didn't win a battle. So logistics is. So I know China does have advantage because they can do things quicker because the top-down approach, authoritarian approach. But US have the logistics, have these resource. So I think a lot of stuff that we mentioned is on the surface, but a lot of military research is actually not being published. All the scientists that work on the program is actually military personnel
Study
or
that.
former military
Yeah,
personnel, and
talk about the program.
yeah, so we have a lot of statistics, and I think
No, they want to
we,
learn
you
why
know,
we do
battle
this.
didn't
Yeah,
win because strategy, because
yeah.
logistics, and that's what I have to remind everyone is. I know there are news out there, but news is one
Ready,
thing,
bro?
but we have to take it with a grain of salt.
School
So
tomorrow.
thank you.
I think
You have
the
lunch
real
ready?
advantage the U.S. has is the entrepreneurs. I mean, China doesn't have something like that. You don't see Alibaba setting up a rocket. And I mean, I think there was a part of the problem in the U.S. is, the Artemis missions to put people back on the moon from the U.S. is slated to cost $100 billion by the time we finally put a man and a woman on the moon on the third mission. And, I think there's been comments that if we let Elon do it, he'd do it for under 10. So I think doing it that way and having, Bezos, Musk, who knows who next, maybe Zuckerberg, do it will make it happen more frequently, and then scientists can latch onto that.
Exactly. The same thing about what I said about the military is the same thing private companies. That's what was said for the reasons why that they should cut back on NASA. And I'm putting in air quotes because it was congressmen that were saying that they should cut back and let the private companies do that because of they were saying government was too big and they have to spend the taxpayers' dollars a bit more wiser. And it's just certain parties saying that that's the way we should go. Like let those companies handle it versus the U.S. taxpayer.
Yep, I think the DoD model, I mean, the internet is a good example of that. Invest a lot of money, start it, and then let it go. And look where, once entrepreneurs get a handle on it, there's a lot of money to be made on the moon. So I don't think any one country is going to own it because once the entrepreneurs get up there, we'll mine it.
And let's not forget, China, the way China is structured. I mean, I doubt if Alibaba would ever try to do that, especially how there's such a tight control on the companies there. And was this VTR? I think that's what it says. He actually made an interesting point saying, like, yeah, tax dollars isn't being used pretty much, but SpaceX is funded by government dollars, and that's exactly right. It's just that also they're not paying for human resources too. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think there is one example difference between, for example, SpaceX and United Launch Alliance. In listening to one of the hearings, it was mentioned that United Launch Alliance has almost like an upkeep tax that they charge for always being quote unquote ready. And Elon challenged that, I think, to some extent, saying that SpaceX was always ready. We didn't need some sort of tax to ensure that. And that's just perhaps speaks to the different approaches. One is a